at you. Good Monday, everybody. Welcome once again to BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Matthew, good set of shows this week, and we are headed to the month of March, man.
Hard to believe. February just flew by. A lot of action went down.
It is the shortest month of the year.
It is, but only by like 2-3 days.
All right, good set of shows this week. Today we're going to have the man that's getting it done over on the Elite Series, leading the Angler of the Year standings. Mr. Chris Johnston is going to join us from Canada via Skype.
He's gotten it done since he started fishing. It's just the fact that he's now on the Elite Series. We've talked about him over on his 3 years with the
almost a half a million.
Tour.
Almost a half a million.
Yeah, I've got some really interesting stats. He's on like a Steve Kennedy pace as far as being able to just make a living fishing without any sponsors on a earnings per tournament basis. But for 10 years, he'd fished the FLW Costa Series up there in the north and just dominated. He's been either first or second the last 3 years. He's had 5 top 2 finishes in that Angler of the Year division.
Yeah.
So for over a decade, a lot of people have known who he is, and then you throw in he's won the Sturgeon Bay Open with his brother. He's won the Canadian Open.
Yeah.
It's not like he's new here.
Fairly young guy, too.
Yeah.
Super young. All
and
right.
a hockey player.
Yeah.
I got some hockey stats.
We'll talk about that. All right. Then on Tuesday, we're going to have Stephen Browning on. Had 2 really good tournaments, 2 events over on the MLF side, and Stephen making the move, obviously, over to Major League Fishing, and still a lot of friends over on the bass side. And, when I was setting it up, he kind of talked a little bit about that. So we're going to get into some of that on the show. But I had no idea. I did not realize he's almost 54 years old.
Yeah, an Arkansas guy, and I actually talked to him about that following one of the days down at Conroe about how the move to the Bass Pro Tour really, he felt, rejuvenated his career, gave him an excitement he hadn't felt in a number of years, and then he had that epic catch at the end of the period, at the end of the day, on that chatterbait to get into the final day cut. So I actually have some footage that I talked to him as soon as he came off the water to talk. I mean, to him, he said that felt like he almost had won a tournament just by catching that one fish. So that'll be a really good interview of a guy who's been around for a long time and is fishing really well.
Yeah, and then on Wednesday, we're going to have FLW Tour rookie Miles Burkhoff on. He actually reached out to me, said he was a fan of BTL, and I thought it'd be a cool idea to get a rookie on. He's been fishing a while, though. Mm-hmm. He's kind of been entrenched in tournament angling over the years, but his first couple of events, not bad. Had a really good event on Sam Rayburn, so we're going to get his take from a rookie perspective on what's going on over on the FLW Tour.
And this will be an enjoyable show for you because he has done an amazing job on the business side, the marketing side of professional bass fishing, coming up through the ranks and on TV and on the internet. So you and him can have some business discussions, and I'll just kick back.
No, that's not true. He can catch him. I mean, he's proven that this year.
He had
All
a great
right.
start to the year.
A couple of things that we need to discuss before we take a break and bring Chris in live via Skype. I failed to mention this last week, and I talked about it on the show in I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago about the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. And it was announced, and I actually put a post on BassZone.com that the guys that have been voted in, some very, very well-known names in the bass fishing industry. Mark Davis, Davey Height, Ed Chambers, David Fritz, and Chris Armstrong, who is just an impressive person from an illustrator standpoint. Did some great, great stuff. And obviously we've lost Ed Chambers and Chris Armstrong. But Mark Davis, Davey Height, and David Fritz get in.
Awesome. I remember they actually let David Fritz know following one of his weigh-in days. He was on stage when he heard that he got in, and all deserving of all three. You talk about the classic titles, and then Davey Height's second career now. I mean, that's going amazing.
Yeah.
He does a really good job.
Yeah. All good, man. All good.
All three very deserving. And then obviously you talked about how did you say you would give up your vote or you would stop voting if Ed Chambers didn't get in?
That's not what I said. I said I was going to tell everybody
that you are voting for him.
That I thought that well deserved to be in the Hall of Fame.
Kind of a no-brainer
Chambers.
group this year.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking forward to that, the Hall of Fame dinner, and that might be interesting also.
Yeah, what did you have to? You have to be 50?
Yeah.
In order to have, so it's kind of weird. The Fishing Hall of Fame has to be the most active participants in their sport still that are in the Hall of Fame. I mean, are there any other Hall of Fames where everyone's still fishing, competing, commentating, designing actively, and they're in the Hall of Fame already?
I think golf and the senior tour.
Okay.
Yeah, you might have some guys that participate. Oh, and by the way, this just crossed my mind as you said that. Did you see who won the PBA Tour Stop this past weekend? 54-year-old Norm Duke.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Who do you think he beat?
Did he beat Belmonte?
Yes.
Was it the Open? The Players Championship?
No, that was the week
ago.
before.
Who was the dude who's got the fro? Who almost made it to the finals?
Troop.
He finished third. Did you know that he got $13,000 for finishing third? It was 25 for second and 50 for first. I was talking to David from the Outdoor Scoreboard about it, and he brought up the point. Well, they don't have a boat and a truck, so that money goes a little bit farther.
The entry fee is only $600.
Oh, okay, so that makes a little bit more sense. But yeah, I've been keeping up with my bowling.
Yeah, but it was neat, and the Hall of Famer,
Norm Duke.
39 titles now.
Wow.
But it was the first time that Belmonte and Norm Duke went head-to-head on television.
That's historic.
Anyway, it was quite entertaining. And I got an email as I was working yesterday from Ken in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Ken in Michigan. Said that he was at the airport and they were watching the Michigan State game. And this guy in the bar was pissed off because he wanted to watch bowling and nobody wanted the channel changed
to bowling.
to bowling on one of the televisions. So good stuff there. All right, next subject real quick. I want to touch on this. I mentioned the Bass Fan rankings last week, how I think that those rankings, as good as they have been over the years, are just they don't mean
thrown
anything.
Into turmoil due to the new format of the BPT, trying to rank guys in relation to the Five Fish tournament, just to get everyone caught up.
Exactly. And here's my point I'm going to make, because I thought about this over the weekend as I was watching the AAF. Just watched a little bit of it.
The new football league.
Yeah, watched a little of Birmingham, and I don't even remember who they were playing. The Birmingham Iron. Mm-hmm. They just have this black uniforms, black helmets, silver. Anyway, Warren Moon, do you know who that is?
Yes. He was a quarterback.
Yeah, he played for the Houston Oilers back when Houston had the Oilers before they moved to Nashville and all that changed around. Spent a lot of time in Canada in the Canadian Football League. But when you came out with quarterback ratings, you could not take into consideration what he did in Canada, because the game in Canada, be it football, is totally different. They only have 3 downs. The field is longer. It is a pass-oriented league. You just can't compare the two. 2 different types of football. So as far as ranking quarterbacks in the world of football, you really cannot compare NFL or even AAF quarterbacks to quarterbacks in the Canadian Football League. Even though it is football, even though it is at a high level, it's 2 totally different games. Totally different games, because you have strategy that is involved on the BPT that is not involved in any way on any of the other tours. What are your thoughts?
I understand where you're coming from, but prior to this, we were ranking Elite Series anglers versus FLW Tour anglers, and you're dealing with a field that's almost twice the size of an Elite Series field, which actually changes the game too. You're going to the same fisheries that they're going. They're competing against almost twice as many guys. That game's going to be different as far as they've got a different practice schedule with a day off. They have to compete on the same water against more anglers, but you're still competing them. So technically, those games aren't exactly the same. And I think the ranking is is based on their finish. It's not how they get to the finish, it's where they finish. You're talking about the same players that are still competing against each other. So I'm okay with it, even though it is a different format, even though it is a different game, as MLF likes to call it.
Yeah.
You're comparing finishings. You're not comparing how they got to the finish, the number of fish they catch, how big a fish they catch, the big bass. None of that is taken into account in the rankings. It is simply on where, when the last cast is made, the angler is positioned. So I don't really have a problem with it. I'm looking at them now. It looks like there's 3 anglers in the top 10, and Scott Martin and Chris Johnston and Brian Thrift, who are not competing on the BPT. Jordan Lee, he's number 1. Edwin's number 2. They're number 1 and number 2 in their Angler of the Year. Chris Johnston, he's number 4. He's number 1 in the Elite Series Angler of the Year. I mean, I'm not losing any sleep over this.
Did I say I was?
No, but
I mean, the industry has kind of used. Though. Yeah, but you know what, Matt? What about if I win 3 consecutive shotgun rounds, but I don't make the cut?
Well, then you need to take that up with Boyd and Gary.
But you can't not compare the two. You can't take the stats that take place in the Canadian Football League, even though they might win a Grey Cup. Right,
but under the given rules, that is the top guy that week.
You can't do it. It's not even close, dude. It's
I
apples
see where
and
you're
oranges.
coming from, but I disagree with it. It's not a big deal to me. There's always been slightly different formats and formulas, so you're still doing it based on how they finish.
Moving on.
Regardless of their shotgun.
As you know, on this show,
one more thing. That would be like if you're leading an Elite Series after day 1 or 2 and then zeroed on the last day and finished 35th or something. It doesn't matter that you were leading the first day.
You beat 40 guys.
Right, but you would still do that if you won your round in MLF.
You just beat 40 guys. Is that taken into consideration?
Yeah, because you're going to get points for finishing.
I don't think so. You're going to get points, but the fact that you went out and you kicked butt.
Right, but that's not important. The point is to make it to the final round, which is a different set of skills. So I see, like I said, I see where you're coming from. Don't really see an issue with it, though.
All right. Anyway, some people say I can't compare anything to bass fishing, any sport.
We compare any sport to bass fishing.
I totally disagree on that one.
We compared every sport to bass fishing.
All right. Next on the list, as everybody knows, I talk weather on this show quite a bit because the weather is a vital, important part of what takes place when it comes to these events. And dude, I'm telling you right now, the area around Tennessee is getting absolutely obliterated with water.
What did I see? It was 3.3 million gallons something coming out of the Wilson Dam. That whole chain is, Jordan Lee had a post. He'd never seen that amount of water in Gunnersville the way it was rolling through. Just absolute insanity on the whole TVA system right now with the amount of water rolling through it, which affects a number of upcoming tournaments, most notably the
Bassmaster Classic. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but man, they are just getting hammered by rain and storms and cold fronts and just nastiness. So it's only 3-4 weeks away? 3 weeks away.
3 weeks away, which means that practice starts in 2 weeks. Because remember, they get there and practice and have off days and media days and then another practice. So you've got guys gearing up to go to this classic, and the Tennessee River is not very happy.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's gonna be very, very cool to see how that whole thing shakes out, just from a performance standpoint.
I would assume there's a pretty easy backup plan on either Tellico or Loudon, right?
Yeah.
Just move it to there instead of at the river right there.
I would think.
To where you can still fish. You just don't have to go down the...
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like like a Grand Lake when we were talking, when that was with the frozen conditions and the ice and all that.
Yeah.
That is kind of a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
But here you've got those two fisheries. And most of them are going to fish anyway. There's a lot of options in play.
All right. The final subject, and then we're going to take a break and come back with Chris. I want to mention the Instagram post that Mike Iaconelli threw out there, and
3 days ago.
Yeah, and when I read it for the first time, I just kind of shook my head and went, okay.
It's a silhouette of his face.
Yeah.
And it has to do with what has happened in the first 2 Bass Pro Tour events.
Yeah.
Deals with...
the dude's going through a lot.
Yeah.
He's going through a lot. And for people that have listened to this show over the years, obviously, I've had a fairly close relationship with Ike and with Becky, his wife. When we were in the initial stages of creating Ike Live, and the documentary that I did on Mike, I got to see a side of Mike that not too many people get to see. And I remember one thing, when we did the documentary on Ike and we went back to the place on the river where he won, he became very, very emotional. And, even kind of teared up a little bit. And I think he's just going through a lot, folks. Mike is Mike. And I think the fact, and in case you haven't heard or known, I think it's quite obvious that his television show on Net Geo Wild was not renewed, not going to be doing that. And I think that has to do a big part of what he's going through right now. And that's kind of an observation in knowing some stuff about what he really wanted to accomplish with that show. And Becky and everybody involved with the Ike brand put a tremendous amount of time and effort into that television show. And I think it really, really kind of hit him hard when he realized that show wasn't going to get renewed. Hence, you throw in the fact that he gets knocked out in the last 10 seconds
of each, the first 2.
Yeah. So you throw everything together, and then the fact that, I think sometimes people forget that there's still a family aspect that takes place with these guys. Be it they have children, they have things that they miss out on because they're on the road so much. And I think Mike's kind of at the point in his life where he's realizing that he doesn't want to miss out on these things with his kids and with his family, and he wants to do everything that he can to try and be a good dad. And you take that, and you take, like I said, the television show and the way that the first 2 ran out, and I think it just got to a boiling point, and we saw the result.
Fair point. I got one more thing.
All right.
Daryl Gleason smoked everyone at T-Bend in the Open.
25 pounds on the last
25 pounds on the last day and wins by 10 pounds.
And what does he do? What is his full-time gig there, Matthew?
He's a guide.
On what lake?
Toledo Bend. He just blew everyone's speakers out.
There's no home field advantage on that?
Yeah, there absolutely is. And one of the days canceled due to weather. So the full field fished 2 days. One of the articles, I thought it was interesting. He was sharing it on the second day. So it was only the second day with a guy. I think the guy's name was Gary Adkins. Guy said, dude, it's yours. You can have it. Leave. Yeah. And he left. And Daryl, made a point of thanking him and saying he wouldn't have been able to do it, but he weighed in fairly early and had that enormous lead, and no one caught him. So he's in the 2020 Classic as long as he fishes the next 2. Really good dude. I've actually played golf with him at the Toledo Bend golf course. Believe it or not.
How did that happen?
I was playing with a couple of other guys, and he came and joined the group there. So Tommy Martin finished in 6th place. There were some big names. Tom Reddington having a heck of a year. Had some good finishes on the tour. He's up there. And then Ken Iobi, former Elite Series pro. And then I remember in 12th place, and I think this is interesting because he did well in Florida too, is this kid named Chad Smith, who was like a co-angler on the FLW tour. And I remember Brad Hallman drew him, and I talked to him afterwards, and he's like, dude, I drew this freaking co-angler. He's unbelievably good. Like, he's going to fish next year. He's like incredibly good, and he comes out and he's had like a really good start to the season, so he's kind of on the radar as in the next 2-3 years as maybe an up-and-coming guy to watch out for.
All right, man. Did you catch anything this week? Man, Saturday the wind blew 50-60 miles
Canceled
an hour
the
here.
BFL on Grand.
Yeah. And then Sunday it was gorgeous.
Yeah, I went out with my buddy Brock on Grand. Didn't get out till like 11 and got off the water at like 2:30, so we were out for like 2.5-3 hours. One bite, but it was a 4.5 pounder. Gorgeous.
Good.
Grand Lake bass, beautiful colors on it, red lips. You know how they get in that winter time where they just, where they've been up there eating on the crawfish.
Lips.
Got the lipstick on them. You know what I'm talking about. In the spring, they get that.
I've never seen
kind
a
of rosy
red-lipped bass.
Well, you've never fished in the early spring, then.
Oh, I have.
I guarantee a lot of the people are fishing now. You catch fish with red lips on it. That means they've been up there chewing on them crawfish.
All right, folks. During this early spring, if you happen to catch a bass with red lips, please send me a photo because I'm not believing it. Red lips.
Yeah, it's like a known thing. It's not that crazy.
Red lips.
Yeah, it looks like basically like lipstick on them.
Never
on
heard
the
of
top
that.
and bottom, rosy red, right?
I've never heard somebody weigh in 5 and go, well, I got on the pattern where, I got into the fish. They had super, super red lips.
You can tell whether they're up there grinding. You can look at these guys will look at the bottom of their jaws and stuff and tell whether they've been eating shad or whether they've been rooting around in the bottom for crawfish.
I've heard of bloody bellies.
Well, that's for spawning and stuff.
Bloody
but
tails.
You can tell a lot based on a fish's mouth. They get a lot softer after the spawn. You can tell based on the inside if they've been crushing on stuff, if they've been eating, bait fish or hard crustacean.
Yeah.
A lot you can tell by a bass's mouth.
Okay. Whatever. All right, everybody. Coming back with Chris Johnston. Everybody stay tuned.
Sleek new design with easy control file. The clearest images underwater with uncompromising range. Live mapping from the touchscreen. View notifications, video, even Google Maps on screen. And for the first time ever, real-time view of fish movements with live sight sonar. HDS Live. New from Lowrance.
It's about the hours spent getting everything just right. It's the attention to detail. Good just isn't good enough. It's the years spent on the water day after day. When you tie on a bait by Strike King, you're standing on the shoulders of legends.
Pros depend on hydraulic jack plates to get the best out of their boats. Do what they do. Demand Atlas performance. Atlas gets you from the bottom to the top in less than 8 seconds, even with the big 4 strokes. And when you gotta turn right around and get that heavy load back up in rough water, Atlas's innovative design and American-made components will get you there with confidence.
I'm at Depot. Just look for yourself. There's an Atlas jack plate on just about every professional's boat.
The Atlas hydraulic jack plate. You can depend on it.
Hey guys, Aaron Martins here. I'm going to be telling you about a new product by Sunline. It's Siglon PE x8. I've been using it almost extensively all year for my frogging, flipping, drop shotting, shaky heading, worming, jerk baiting. It's by far my favorite Sunline braid. I honestly, I don't say this unless I think it's true, but honestly it's the best braid in the market out of any of the braids. Definitely check it out. It's a price point line, $14.95 for 165 yards, and that could last you a whole year, just one spool with using leader material. It's Siglon PE times 8. It's my favorite braid, and I think if you use it, it'll be your favorite braid too. AFCO has a new foul weather rain suit called the Hydronaut. A lot of the features that I really like about it first is the speed vent hood. If it's raining out, you know how a person gets wet is when you run down the lake and the hood comes down. With the speed vent hood, it's going to stay up. It has a camera mount in the pocket on the chest. The Hydronaut has a 2-layer, 100% waterproof nylon shell. If you're interested in a rain suit that has a lot of cool features that's going to keep you dry, you need to check out the Hydronaut from AFCO.
All right, we are back kicking off the week on a Monday, and I guess I'm an idiot.
You're getting drilled on the instant feedback.
I cannot tell you the last time I've caught a fish and it had red lips.
I guarantee you that Chris Johnston, you could show him a smallmouth bass, and he could look at its head and face area and tell you what time of the year it was caught and what it had primarily been feeding on.
Is it going to have red lips?
I don't know about the smallies. I know the smallies don't, but I mean, you can tell a lot just based on how the fish looks.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just telling you,
the greatest comment on there was that, you would never catch a red-lipped one because all you do is throw top water in prime conditions.
This is true.
So you're not out in the cold.
That's what happens when you get old.
It's an early spring, late winter deal where the fish get the colored lips.
All right, you ready to bring in our first guest?
Let's do it.
He is having just a fantastic year on the Elite Series. And leading the Angler of the Year race right now after 2 events, headed into the Bassmaster Classic. And pretty cool dude, man. Plays a little hockey, too.
Yeah, won an FLW Tour event, 3 years on tour. You saying he's having a fantastic year. Really, if you go back and look and do a little research, he's having a fantastic decade.
Yeah. Good point.
He's averaging. He's fishing like 80... or 71 tour level or FLW and BAS events. He's only fishing 6 BASS events, but 71 between that and FLW. He's averaging $7,900 every time he launches his boat.
Almost $500,000 over on the FLW side.
Yeah, right. I mean, right at almost well over $500,000, and then you throw in all the Canadian Grand National Tour titles he's got. He's got to be close to $1 million.
Yeah. Good point. All right, let's bring him in. Chris, you there, man?
Yeah, I am.
All right, thanks for taking time out, man. What's the weather like in Canada?
Actually, we just had big wind advisory, snow squalls. I think we got about 70, 80 mile an hour winds right now, and the power is going out everywhere. So lucky I can connect with you guys, and I'm ready to get back down south fishing. That's for sure. Yeah, it's not nice.
Sounds like the conditions for the BFL that they canceled on Grands yesterday.
Hey, I would think part of the biggest challenge. I mean, I don't know what you do. You could tell us, but part of the biggest challenge is in between stops. You trying to get home this time of the year.
Yeah, it's not as bad as you think. Usually when there's like 2 Florida tournaments or something, I have some buddies down there. I'll leave my truck and boat down there, fly home. And this past tournament after Lanier, I pulled the rig home because I got about over a month to repack, and I want my truck at home. And just it's nice to clean out the boat and stuff and get ready for the next derby. But it's not as big as an issue as you think. Like my other buddy Gussie, who lives in Kenora, he's about 24 hours north of me, northwest. So it's about 25 hours just to get to Georgia for him. So he's a little more inconvenienced, but it's 16 hours for me to get to Atlanta. So it's not as bad as you think.
Yeah, I've tried to call Gussie to do a story or 2 with him, and then I look at his Instagram, and he's always either snowmobiling or ice fishing. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to get a hold of this guy. He's like out in the wilderness all the time.
He doesn't have Wi-Fi in his igloo either, so he's way up there.
Wow. All right, man. Give us your thoughts on your first 2 Elite Series events, second place finish and a 10th place finish. I mean, what are your thoughts when you sit back and look what you've done in these first 2 events?
I just think, how am I going to keep it going, to be honest? But I had fun. That St. John's tournament was one of the most fun tournaments I've fished probably ever in the States, just for quality of bass and size. And then to do it on my first debut on the Elite Series, I couldn't ask for a better tournament. And then Lanier, I was really looking forward to that event. and it didn't pan out the way I wanted. I had a tough practice, and I literally junk fished, and I scraped and clawed just to get in that top 10. So I was happy with that finish. And Hartwell, I have a little experience on there, and I'm really looking forward to that event. And yeah, everyone says, are you looking forward to, like, are you looking at the stats, AOY? And I am, but I still fish the tournament to win every time. So at Hartwell, I'm not going to try and play it safer. I think I still going to fish the same way I did the first 2 events. So we'll see what happens.
One of the things that I find impressive is your ability to catch all of the different subspecies of bass. You've got a win on Florida strain bass. We've seen what you can do on Lanier spotted bass. You're obviously very adept at catching smallmouth bass, and then we've seen what you can do with northern strain largemouth as well. How do you get so good at catching fish that behave so differently from the tip of Florida all the way up into Canada in a relatively short amount of time?
Believe it or not, like, everyone thinks, oh, all we do is catch smallmouth up here, but I really cut my teeth in fishing doing largemouth. It was flipping pencil reeds, cane, mats, deep milfoil, and that's how I kind of got into tournament fishing. And smallmouth around here really took off in the last 5 to 10 years, where you need to catch them to win tournaments. But going out fishing, 10 minutes from my home, I could go to a place called the Pigeon River, and it would be like I'm fishing in Florida. So that's why I like fishing those grass lakes, and it really relates back to home, and I'm very comfortable doing it. Spotted bass, that's a little different, but sometimes they relate a lot to fishing like smallmouth, just using your electronics. And once you figure that out, and you got different techniques to catch them, it's just being from up north actually makes me very versatile. I can do everything up here other than spotted bass, but like I said, they're similar to smallmouth in some lakes. So I think I'm very lucky to be growing up fishing around here, and I can carry it over to the U.S. lakes.
I want to go back to 2015. This is before you were on the FLW tour, and everyone kind of knew who you were through that. But you fished Bass Fest on Kentucky Lake. It was a tough tournament. I remember that tournament. And I'm thinking back in the memory bank here, and if I'm wrong, we can just scrap this. But did you not share a shell bed there with Dean Rojas for the duration of that tournament?
Yeah, I did.
You did, and I remember this. So Dean comes in, and he's fishing for the points, and all those guys were pissed off anyway that they had to fish against guys who were fishing the opens, who got into Bass Fest and blah blah blah. But he shares it with you, and he comes in the water after the first day, and he's like, dude, I don't know who the heck this guy is. He's like, I was a dick to him because I didn't want him on the spot, and then we ended up working together, and then he was like throwing a drop shot, and I was throwing a wobble head, and then the next day, like, I started using the drop shot, and by the end of it, dude, he was like, man, that guy that I shared that spot with, he was good, and he's the reason I cashed a check in this event. Do you remember that whole thing? I mean, that was like your first kind of experience with that?
I remember it very well, and I was nervous for that tournament, going up against the best fishermen in the industry, and I watched them growing up, and it was a big tournament. I had to pay $6,000 to get in that tournament, so I was nervous going into it, and I had 1 or 2 really good areas, but where Dean was, that was my juice. That was my one good spot, and luckily we were able to work together on it, and I might have got a few more that day, but I had a lot of fun.
Were you nervous going into that? I remember he said that. I mean, it was like kind of you two, and you eventually just decided we'll just work together on it, right? Yeah,
I was super nervous because I didn't know how people work together on the elites, and I rolled up there, and you can see from like 2 miles out, there's a boat on my spot, and I was like, oh no, I'm hoping they're not right on it. And I get right up there, and he's like right on the juice. So I had a couple fish, maybe 100 yards off. So I'm like, I'll go over there and just see how that goes. And I actually started catching, I don't know, I think I caught my limit in about 5-10 minutes, and he wasn't catching any. So he worked his way over towards me, and the school had shut down. So I was like, well, all right, I'll go around, I'll go to where I wanted to go. And once I got over there, I started getting like 4 and 5 pounders. And so I think he was doing some donuts that day, but I had fun, and he was a good guy, so no complaints there.
All right, on the instant feedback, Steve from Tennessee wants to know, there's been a lot of guys on the West Coast that have moved to Alabama simply because of the travel. He wants to know, would you ever consider moving somewhere closer to where all the action is, or are you pretty much, entrenched in Canada where you are?
I love it up here. Like you said, we only get a 4-month window of fishing, but it's some of the best fishing in the world. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And then, not to mention, deer season starts here in October, and we're very spoiled with deer season. I don't want to give that up. And then we got hockey up here. I don't have any beer leagues probably down in Georgia or Florida to play in. So, no, I like it here. And it's nice because when the winter comes, I don't mind winter for 2 or 3 months, but then fishing season starts and I get to get out of here and go down south somewhere warm, and it breaks up the winter for me. So, no, I don't think I'll ever move.
All right, Chris, was there anything in these first 2 events that you just kind of shook your head and go, wow, I can't believe that just happened? Or, wow, what am I going to do to fix this? Or anything that you had to deal with from an adversity standpoint that you really didn't expect?
There's a few things. The first day I was struggling. I had a game plan. I was going to go catch like 2.5, 3 pounders on some beds that were pretty good because I had tough practice. And as everyone knows, like the fish weren't up yet. So I went down there. It didn't go well at all. So I started fishing new water looking for beds, and I had 1 2-pounder in the boat, and then I ended up hooking an 8-pounder on a stupid Cinco, on 8-pound test. So I chased this fish around the canal for like a minute and a half. I almost had my hand on him. Anyways, he pops off. And at 11:30, I had 1 fish in the boat. And I thought, this is not good. I am going to bomb. I'll be at the bottom of the list. And I decided I only have 1 chance. I'll go look for some new betters that hopefully pulled up in those buggy whips. And turns out they did. So I got through that day, and there was a little adversity. And day 2, so I was excited to get to my spot. I caught them all in an hour and a half. I got, 22 pounds. Day 2, I had some mechanical issues about 5 minutes off takeoff. So I had to shut down. I had to get a tow from the police back. And I lost about 2 hours of fishing. So then, so I was frustrated to say the least. So I finally get down there, rip down, and I ended up catching them pretty quick. But it was hard to keep my mind in the game after having that little issue.
Wow. That's some adversity.
Yeah. So I battled through it, and when I got the first bite, it all kind of went away, that's for sure.
How much has your success in, you won the Canadian Open in 2013, maybe several other times that I wasn't able to find. You had the Sturgeon Bay Open in 15. You're talking $45,000, $50,000 tournaments, big weights, a lot of the top anglers there. Did those wins kind of earlier, before you joined FLW, before you came on the Elite Series, before you fished in the Forest Wood Cups, did that kind of prepare you for that kind of clutch performing?
I think so. Fishing in some of those tournaments, I've actually been lucky enough to win 3 of the Canadian Opens. And before that, I lost. I think I lost 3 times, and I've led after like 2 days going into the final day and blew it. So, yeah, I've gotten used to the pressure, and I've blown my share. So I know what it's all about. And I'm used to fishing for some big money tournaments up north, and I just look at an Elite Series, a Forest Wood Cup, or a Bassmaster Classic, the same thing. And obviously, there's a little more pressure in some of the Bassmaster ones, and the Classic would be huge. But I'm used to it. And like you said, playing hockey and stuff, I grew up playing in big clutch games where the same kind of pressure was on you, and you learn to deal with it.
All right, I know you've got some hockey questions, Matt, but I want to ask him one thing. Have you ever thought, and are you aware of the U.S. Open? Has there ever been anybody win the Canadian Open and the U.S. Open? Have you thought about fishing that?
Honestly, I haven't, because I've looked at the last couple of years and looked at the weights and the fish. It looks fun, but that's a long ways to drive.
Dude,
I don't know if I want to make that drive.
You would catch them there.
Yeah.
It's like clear water drop shot. I mean, it's like $100-something grand to win. Like, that would be. I never thought about that. That would be awesome, dude. You got to put that on your schedule.
Yeah, maybe if I can fly down or something and borrow someone's boat, I'd look at it. I don't know, what time of year is that? The fall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
October. Like, you would get out there and be like, "Oh, this is easy."
I don't know if it's ever easy, but I think it'd be fun. So I might look at it. We'll see. We'll see what the wife has to say about that one.
I don't think anybody has ever done that. Have they, Matt? That would be cool.
I know Charlie Hartley's fished the Canadian Open. Has he fished the U.S. Open too?
I don't think so.
There's got to be a couple of guys who have fished both.
Has Aaron done it?
I can't remember. There's some big name guys that used to fish the Canadian Open that fished the Elite Series back 20 years ago, and I'd have to look it up, but I can't remember who it was. But there's definitely a few Americans that have come up to fish the Canadian Open. It's a lot of fun. Like now it's on smallmouth lakes, and you're weighing 25 to 30 pounds a day to win it. So you can't complain about that.
All right, we mentioned the hockey thing. Jeffries is believe it or not, a basketball guy. I don't know how that happened. But so he always gets to talk to the guys who are basketball. So I'm a
hockey guy too.
Yeah, you're a hockey guy too. He's got a Curtis Joseph signed stick in the office, and he's been with. Have you ever been with the Stanley Cup, like in your presence?
Oh yeah.
Did you touch it?
They bring it to rinks. I think I did that one. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because I knew I wasn't winning it.
So like seriously, for people who don't understand, like when you play juniors up in Canada, like it's the real deal. There's like the Quebec League, the OHL, the WHL, major juniors. Like 80% of the guys are from Canada, even more that you see on TV played in one of these leagues. Chris played in it was at back then called the Ontario Provincial Canada League. There's a lot of good guys to it. So it's a team, Chris, you played for. I don't know if you're aware of the distinguished alumni that came out of the team, the Peterborough Stars that you were on, but Ty Domi.
Wow.
Jeffries, that's a throwback for you.
Yeah,
remember
Toronto Maple Leafs.
Remember that guy? He squirted the water on him, and he came over the glass, and then he beat the crap out of him in the penalty box. Steve Larmer.
Oh, yeah.
That's another guy, played for the team he did. And now, here is the Oklahoma connection.
Okay.
Carrie Underwood, where is she from?
Shakota.
Who did she marry?
The guy that played for
Mike
the Preds.
Fisher.
Yeah.
Where did Mike Fisher play juniors?
On his team?
The Peterborough Stars. I mean, we're practically like best friends already, Chris.
Yeah. You know your stats. I'll give you that one.
So,
I didn't even know most of those.
I mean, talk a little bit about the hockey aspect of it and the competitive aspect of it, because I played juniors for a couple years. I didn't play like for 5 years in the OP like you did, and Mercer said you even turned down like a minor league contract in America so you could fish more.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I had some good years in junior. I wasn't a huge goal scorer, but I was a bit of a grinder. I got the job done, and I'd pass it to someone that could put it in the net, and they get the credit. But I had a lot of fun playing junior. I wish I had a few more years of it. But I ended up getting a call from Knoxville Ice Bears, where the Classic actually is. So I know a couple of the guys down there, and I went down for tryouts, and I was fortunate enough to make the team. And it was $500 a week. They pay your living expenses and stuff, your food. But I decided, you know what, hunting season's coming up, fishing, $500 a week. I'm never gonna make a living out of it. So I'm gonna go do some of the stuff I love. And I turned it down, and I kind of wish sometimes I played for 1 or 2 years just to live the life of a hockey star down there. But I'm not happy. I'm not disappointed in turning it down either.
I'm telling you, those SPHL guys, they get treated like kings in America.
Yeah.
They definitely have some fun, that's for sure.
So my question is, kind of the only adrenaline rush that I get, like the pregame skate, you're playing or in the playoffs or anything, the only adrenaline rush you get, do you get that kind of same feeling then, going out into the final day where you kind of put everything aside and you get that kind of the same feeling that you did getting onto the ice? Because I know in my, smaller tournaments when I'm in it, that's the only time I get that same feeling that I had a decade ago when you step on the ice.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. The music's going. You get pumped up a little bit. I don't know if it's quite the adrenaline rush I've got for some of the big hockey games yet. Just because you're out, you're skating, and you know what it's like if you play hockey. You can't duplicate that feeling. But maybe like at the Bassmaster Classic or something, if you're in contention, I think you get that same feeling where the adrenaline's going, and you can feel your heart racing, and it's game time.
All right, Steven on the instant feedback wants to know, what is the hardest thing for Canadian anglers to do to break into the professional level?
There's not quite professional level in Canada, so that's what makes it hard. No one's ever done it. The biggest thing is financing, I think, because you have to take multiple weeks off work, and there's not the sponsors in Canada to support fishermen to do it for a living. So you kind of have to have a job and be able to go to the States. and fish. So it's hard to do both, to have a job to go that lets you take that time off work, I think. I think you're going to see more anglers coming from Canada trying to make a career out of it, though. So I think the biggest thing is financing.
All right. Speaking of finances, do you get paid in Canadian dollars or American dollars?
American dollars, and it's like gold in Canada.
Yeah. That's like a bonus.
Yeah, it's like 100 grand's of 130 Canadian. So it's a good day if you win one.
Do you have to do like a bunch? I know we've had Carl Jocumsen on from Australia, which is a little bit different, obviously. But do you have to go through like a bunch of crap to be able to come down and work here and then go back up there? I mean, is it kind of a pain in the butt, or is it just like you just like stop in at the exchange counter and give them the check and they give you the American at the duty free store?
It's actually, well, we just paid it's hard to find a tax lawyer that does Canadian and U.S. cross-border taxes. And when you do find one, they charge you a fortune. But we just finished paying him a bunch of money, and now it's all set up. He's got it under a treaty. So now it's no problems. We cash a check in Canada, they convert it, and we deal with the Canadian taxes. But so no, it's not a problem. And just had to cost us a little money to get it set up. Well, we don't need it. We don't use a working visa or anything like Jocumsen because we don't stay there.
Okay. That kind of sucks, though. I mean, you have to pay taxes in both countries, don't you?
No, that's why we paid a bunch of money to this tax lawyer. There's actually a treaty between Canada and the U.S., and I don't know the exact details, but there is a treaty that we only pay the taxes in one country.
Okay. Cool deal.
Nice. I have one more Canadian question. Are you familiar with Coca Tea, the beer?
I am, yes.
Yeah. You can only get that in like Colorado in the United States. I've done like extensive research on this. Is there any way that like you could bring down a couple cases of Coca Tea to one of the next couple Elite Series events?
Probably could, but that's a lot of work to bring a Coca Tea. I don't even like that beer, to be honest.
You don't like the Coca Tea? How do you not like Coca Tea? That stuff it's like glacier fresh. It's amazing. You stop at the duty free store and you can get a 30 rack, and then you have to convince someone else going across the border to get another 30 rack for you because they're not.
And one of the first things they ask you at the border is any alcohol or tobacco. So I don't want to say to the guy, I got a case of Coca Tea. They'll probably laugh at me.
I can't believe he doesn't like Coca Tea. He just dropped in my book.
All because of you. All right, Chris. Remainder of the season. What are your thoughts, man?
I'm excited, but there's a couple tournaments on the schedule that got me a little nervous because they're new to me. And I feel like you can be a hero or zero, like Winyah Bay, Fort Gibson, two places I've never been, and we'll see how it shakes out. But Lake Fork is kind of a question mark for me. I've never been there, and I really don't know what to expect on that tournament. So I'll take it one tournament at a time. I'm going to focus on Hartwell, and then hopefully get through that one with the top 10 and move on to Winyah Bay and probably make a 100-mile run and put my boat in some salt water for the first time.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And then close out the season with pretty much 2 locks.
I wouldn't say that, but I have caught the odd smallmouth before. But my goal going into this year before we started is I want to be in contention for Angler of the Year going into the final 2 tournaments, just to give myself a chance at it. And if I blow it, it's my fault.
All right, man. Good stuff. And can't thank you enough for taking time out here on Monday. And off to a great start, and best of luck to you the remainder of the season, man.
I appreciate it, guys, and I'll be down at the Classic. Hope we see you guys there.
All right. We'll be there. All right, man. Take care.
Thanks.
All right. See you. There you have it. Chris Johnston, the man leading the Angler of the Year point standings on the Bassmaster Elite Series. Good dude, man.
Yeah.
He can catch him, too.
Yep.
All right. We didn't even talk about his brother. His brother's a stick, too.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
He catches him too. It's almost to the point like it's almost like the Matt and Jordan Lee thing or the Chris and Bobby Lane thing where like, yeah, it's cool. And then you like separate them and treat them different because you know they have to get tired of being referred to as like Chris and Corey or Corey and Chris or Bobby and Chris.
Probably the first interview that he ever had.
Or Matt and Jordan or Jordan and Matt. Like and you get to the point where it's just like you do your thing, I'll do my thing.
An interesting stat over on the FLW side with him. I was looking at his stats. He went 6 for 7 in getting checks in 2016. 2017, he only went 3 for 7, and then 2018, he went 6 for 8. But I don't know, man. It's interesting that a lot of the venues that we're going to wrap up the season with, yes, he's going to be one of the favorites. But he talked about in the interview, there's a lot of body of water that he hasn't even seen before.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see how he adapts. He's obviously very adaptable, which is one of the questions that I asked him before. But you look at his stats with bass, he's got 4 top 15s in 6 tournaments. So he seems to be able to fish on the fly. And they've done a bunch of stuff about how him and his brother they break down water. They kind of practice together. They share everything. So you get 2 guys who know what they're doing, who are working 100% together and splitting, and that's got to reduce some of the learning curve, I would imagine.
Yeah. A couple of people want to know, what was the water temp on Grand on Sunday?
Where I was, it was 43.
Which is kind of standard for February. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's not abnormal.
Mm-hmm. No.
Right.
Really makes the fish have red lips. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, Mark.
I'm an idiot, I guess. Show me a picture.
Someone sent an attachment. I'll show you after the show.
Okay. Are they red or are they pink?
Some are red, some are pink. Sometimes the bottom of the jaw is kind of messed up. It's got the little ball on the bottom. Will get it. It just depends on whether they're rooting around or feeding on the bait fish. Or...
All right, cool. What else, man? Anything else happen over the weekend you want to discuss?
No, not really.
I'm still waiting to see how much money they're going to throw. God, what is his name? The dude that played for the Senators. Golly. I'm just clueless. Baseball player.
Baseball player?
Yeah.
Who played for the Senators?
Yeah.
In hockey?
The Nationals, not the Senators. Jeez, I'm
Bryce
dating myself.
Harper?
Bryce Harper.
Good Lord, that's like the 1800s.
I'm really dating myself there. The Senators. Jeez. The Nationals. I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. It's Monday, folks. Jeez. Anyway, Bryce Harper. The word is that he is asking for 10 years, $350 million.
That's BPT money.
Wow. That's mind-boggling. Mm-hmm. And it's just going to continue until people finally say, you know what? I'm cutting the cord. I'm not paying $12 for a beer and $10 for a hot dog. I'm done.
Yeah.
Finished. All right. Anything else?
No.
We done?
Hey, here's open.
I don't have anything else.
Look, here's the
on
picture.
My list.
Here's the red lips.
Oh, that's not what I thought it was. Yeah, I've seen that.
What do you mean that's not what you
thought it was? That's not what I thought it was.
How is that not what you
dude.
thought it was?
I was picturing something totally different. I've seen that.
How was that not? What were you picturing is now my next question.
I'll show you afterwards.
Like you were picturing like actual, like it had lipstick on?
No. That's my bad. I've seen that before. I'm an idiot, but I'm not that much of an idiot. All right, by the way, I do want to mention this. I did not get to every single one of the emails that were sent in. I'm going to try and wrap that up today.
Okay.
So there were a few people that I did not respond to emails that were sent in. I'm going to try and wrap that up. I've got 2 classes that I can get some work done because they're working on projects.
You got a big day today? I mean, you got the sweater vest, the hair's done, the striped shirt's looking pressed.
No, you didn't even ask. I'm pissed off because you didn't even ask me about the game.
How did your state championship weekend
go?
We
lost to the number. Yeah, we lost to the number 1 team. So we're in the area finals, and we have to win 3 games to go to the state.
Oh, you're not eliminated?
Round. No, it's double elimination. Yeah, double elimination.
Back in my day when you lost, you were out.
Yeah, they do double elimination. It's been that way forever. So
but
we play on
couple,
Thursday. Yeah, we play on Thursday against a team with a sub 500 record. Should win that game, and then we're going to have to play probably one of the top 5
bulletin
teams.
board material.
What's that?
You just provided bulletin board
sub
material.
500. All I said was just a record.
You said we should win that game.
We should.
That's going to be in the locker room.
I don't think they listen to this show. If they do, hey, guys, you're a good team. You had a couple of good wins in district and the regions, but we'll see what happens on Thursday. Jeez, man, you're just getting me in all kinds of trouble.
Stephen Browning tomorrow. Looking forward to that one after a great start of the 2019 BPT.
Yeah, and said he would be open and frank with his decision to discuss his decision to fish Major League Fishing. And you and I both know, Matthew, he has a lot of friends over there on the bass side. A lot of friends, especially there being in Arkansas, very close to the JM Productions people and stuff. And I don't know, it'll be interesting to get his take on all this stuff that's going down, but off to a great start. All right, tomorrow, as we mentioned, Stephen Browning, Miles Burkhoff on Wednesday. And then I have requested an interview with Ike. And we'll see if that happens the following week to get him on. He really hasn't came out with a statement other than his Instagram post. So we'll see if we can get him on the show the first full week in March. Want to thank Chris Johnston for coming on the show, taking time out, and wish him the best for the remainder of the Elite Series. And we're 3 weeks away from the Bassmaster Classic. It's coming up on us, man. It's going to be a good one. All right, everybody, be safe on your Monday. Stephen Browning tomorrow. We're out of here.